Right.
Hello, everyone.
think-
Thank you. Here.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
No
You got
problem.
it.
Thank you for coming. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So let us begin. It is 7:01. Let us begin. So, guys,
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming to our event.
Yes.
This is volume 2 of Nightcrawlers. My name is Angel, and I will be your host today. Nightcrawlers is a group that I made because we want to promote entrepreneurship and initiative to professionals living in Japan. We believe that people should take more incentive, make their own business, follow their dreams, to keep that passion going on, be disagreeable, and just change the world. Like, we believe in that. So for that reason, today we have a very, very special host. And I think I know him personally. He's an amazing professional, a very good friend, and I know he's going to provide a lot of value to all of you guys. So without further ado, Anthony.
All right. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you so much, Angel. I'm excited to be here, and I really appreciate this opportunity and the community that you've organized.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right. So Anthony, if you could please introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Sure. Okay. I'll try not to be too long-winded. But again, my name is Anthony Griffin, and I run a sole proprietorship called Saga Consulting. So it's a communications firm that helps small to medium-sized Japanese companies communicate to the world. I've been in Japan for over 11 years. I'm originally from Riverside, California, pretty large town near Los Angeles. I'm 40, so I grew up in the 80s when Japan was big. When I was growing up, all of the coolest things and all of the highest quality things were from Japan, be it, cars, electronics, pop culture. So that really gave me, positively influenced me and kept me curious about Japan. Eventually, long story short, I started studying the language a little bit in college. I was a business major, but we had to take a foreign language for 1 year, and I chose Japan on a whim. I thought I would fail, but I had an excellent teacher, and I actually did very well. So then I really started seriously thinking about visiting the country one day and perhaps living here. That didn't become a reality until after I worked a little bit, after graduate school. And then after I got my first marketing job, I could finally take vacations. I started vacationing here 2 times in a row, fell in love with the country. Next thing I know, I'm moving here in 2009.
Wow. All right. That sounds perfect. So how's Japan? Do you like it? Do you enjoy living here?
I love it. Of course, I love California as well. So,
Right.
The reason I've been here so long is because, I've had an amazing experience. I've that's both work and socially. And the reason I'm here is because I do love living and working here.
Definitely. What would you say is like the best thing about living in Japan?
Whew. Good question, Angel. Good question.
Of course.
Wow. There's so many things, and I don't want to give a generic answer.
Right.
However, one of the best things is, the culture. And by culture, I just mean, I'm from a very diverse place, which is excellent. But it's also fascinating to be in a country where, kind of everyone is following a culture and you can participate in that.
Right.
So yeah, I just enjoy being part of the culture, observing the culture. And like many people too, I do enjoy just the overall safety of, you can live in a big city and just go out at night or
Right.
Explore the town without worrying. I like to go
Right.
cycling and jogging just everywhere. So it's just a really comfortable, exciting place to explore.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Definitely. So that's an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
oh, if you could please tell me a little bit more about, what you do, about your business.
Sure, absolutely. So there's basically three pillars to my business, and I'm
Mhm.
happy to see at least one of my clients here in the audience tonight. So thank you for joining. But we are all about communication, and that comes in various forms. So that could include social media management, again, helping Japanese companies go global. That
Mhm.
also includes, content marketing. So I do a lot of writing every day. And then finally, I have a communications consulting and coaching side of the business. So that means I'm teaching most often, maybe Japanese managers or executives to do some of the things that I do as well. And I also help them adapt to a global environment. For example, one of the most popular services that I offer is presentation consulting. For example,
Okay.
global presentations. Yeah.
Mm. I love it. I love it. I love it. All righty.
Thank you.
So basically, what we do in our show, you guys, is we start with a quote. This
Mhm.
quote was chosen by Anthony. And the purpose of this quote is to set the theme and the mood of this event. So, Anthony, if you could please read the quote.
Sure. I love quotes, and there's so many to choose from, but the one I chose for this event was a recent one I stumbled across while listening to a podcast, and that is dig the well before you get thirsty.
Wow.
So you can probably guess what that means, but that means, before you're in trouble or before you need anything, plan ahead, try new things and prepare so that when you do need to make a big move or you need to, try something new, or as we've all seen, when something big changes in the world, you're ready. You have that well and you can draw from it.
That's amazing. How do you
Thank you.
think, like, why is this quote relevant in today's day and age?
Whew. Um, Wow. Well, to me, it's relevant through my whole life,
Right,
for one, but it's
right, 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 right.
especially relevant now. With this COVID-19 situation,
Hmm.
especially where I'm from in America, we have huge unemployment numbers. The
Right.
business world is changing, and honestly, if you look back through history, about every 8 to 12 years, the economy gets shocked in some way.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
had the Lehman shock before that. About 10 years before that, we had the dot-com bubble.
Hmm.
There was the Enron crisis. So, we know that every decade or so, there's going to be a big problem. So during the good times, you need to be preparing for those problems, preparing for those eventualities.
Definitely. Did your experience of the Lehman shock make you, how do you say, more prepared for COVID-19?
Yes, Lehman Shock taught me a valuable lesson, and I was lucky because
Okay.
I came to Japan on my own volition, right around when that was happening. So I
Mm.
was fortunate. I didn't lose a job. I gained an
Right.
opportunity. I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but
Hmm.
back then, I worked in marketing for city government, which was
Right.
considered, very safe and stable.
Hmm. Right.
However, after I got here in Japan, and I was hearing what was happening in my former workplace, people in government losing jobs, I thought to myself, wow, any job is vulnerable to these kinds of crises, and
Mm.
it is good to prepare, build a nest egg, side hustle, try new things all the time, and just be prepared for anything.
All right. So basically, nowhere is safe, and we have to build that safety net for ourselves, right?
Right. And I don't mean to be alarmist or scare people, have fun while you're
Right.
doing these things. Enjoy the side hustle, enjoy
Hmm.
learning these new things, and enjoy your life. But at the same time, do keep in mind that we need to be prepared for these eventualities.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. Actually, I've met many people recently that, they have lost their jobs, because of COVID-19. It's a very tough situation out there. And, you know, what would you say to those people? Imagine someone that has been working in a company for a long time, let's say 10 years, and then COVID-19 happened, and then this person loses everything.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry. Well, like,
go ahead.
What do you think? How do you think becoming a solopreneur will benefit them?
You know, I mean, that situation is tough, and there's no easy solution, and you can't tell someone just to, hey, jump up and start your business.
Right.
You know, so I certainly wouldn't want to say anything like that.
Right.
And everyone's situation is different. So, you know, if you're single, you can do things that other people can't do if they have a family. So, just generally speaking, what I would do if I were in that situation is let go of conventional thought patterns, or unlearn what's been drilled into your head, and think differently. Maybe think to yourself, okay, maybe there's some other ways I should be trying right now. You know, maybe I should experiment with that idea that I had a long time ago, that I thought was a good business opportunity. Maybe now it's time to get online and see if there's demand for this thing I love to do, you know, or this thing I wanted to do. Now, unfortunately, that's not going to solve, you know, severe monetary problems, or, you know, putting food on the table right away. But I hope that could lead down to a path of, you know, preparing and building something better once the crisis is over.
Exactly. And how did it happen for you? Because I know you used to work for the American Chamber of Commerce, right? Before you started Saga Consulting. How did you make that transition?
Excellent question. And again, I might have a slightly long story. The truth is, I had the seed in my brain for a long time, and this is one of the messages I want to share today. The reason I got my MBA was not to work at some big consulting firm or anything like that. It's because I knew one day I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to build my confidence and reduce risk in doing that. However, for years, I just didn't have an idea that I believed I could act upon. You know, I had done freelancing in the States, marketing, consulting, writing. You know, I came to Japan, and I have basically had a side hustle almost the whole 11 years I was here, trying different things, you know, coaching and training and writing and marketing, writing blogs. So the idea was boiling up as I learned new things and had new experiences. And then by the time I was at the chamber and I really got back into digital marketing, and I got a lot of executive level feedback on my work, then I thought to myself, okay, I see a demand for what I'm doing. I want to do something more. I had dug my well. I had saved a nest egg, so I was financially prepared to take the leap. And so I said, you know, it's now or never. It's been 11 years or more. You know, I've tested these ideas through various side hustles and experiments. So by that time, it was ready to go. And thankfully, through building a network, and you know, there were clients that were interested in working with me right off the bat. Again, at least one of them is here tonight.
Awesome. I like that. Because, you know, it's very comfortable to be working in a company, you know, getting your salary, your bonuses, your benefits. Because I know many people have, you know, like on the back of their minds, they want to start their own business. They have this cool idea that they want to bring into the world. Where do you get that confidence and strength to, you know, to materialize this idea into a business? Like, where do you get that strength?
Well, if you're like me, you kind of get forced into it. You know, you get your life just guides you into a corner, and it's you just think, okay, now let's go for it, and let's see what happens. So, but in all seriousness, going back to just what I've seen through these financial crises, through, you know, economic issues, and just seeing people with, you know, comfortable, happy jobs and seeing what happened to them, if you really pay attention to that, you start to think, okay, well, you know, maybe this steady life isn't as safe or steady as I thought. And that lowers the gap or the difference between working for yourself and working for a company. People change jobs more than ever in both the US and Japan. They change jobs so frequently. So in both of these countries, you know, in America, the days of one job for your life is long gone, and that's starting to change here in Japan. So, you know, it just seems like we're going into this direction of, you know, solopreneurship, or the gig economy, as they like to call it.
I see. What about, well, I can imagine maybe in America, when you become an entrepreneur, it's almost how do you say, entrepreneurship is a romanticized idea. We see entrepreneurs as heroes, you know, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. What is the view of a solopreneur in Japan? Because, you know, in Japan, usually people want, you know, the safest route. They want to have a job. Usually, things are changing, but the norm is people stay in one company for the rest of their lives, and they sacrifice, how would you say, that creative satisfaction in their lives for comfort. How do you think you can bring that into Japan? Like, first, if you can tell me the view of solopreneurship, and then how you can implement that in Japan.
Okay. Well, the view is interesting, and again, I'm speaking as a foreigner in Japan, so
right.
This is my unique perspective.
Okay.
You know, if you're a foreigner, I think it's well accepted. You know, I've been blessed with many opportunities to work with many companies, and even though I was kind of warned before doing this, people said, oh, you might want to fully incorporate and become a KK. No one's going to trust you. But a lot of companies have trusted me, and it's been amazing. Now, that's through kind of networking and being here 11 years. So as a foreigner, the you know, view of a solopreneur is so far so good. That being said, you know, I'm not Japanese. However, I think a lot of people don't realize how many, you know, freelancers and solopreneurs are Japanese freelancers and solopreneurs are actually out there. I was inspired by many before I started my business, and you'll see actually a lot of women entrepreneurs out there who didn't like how they were treated at their job, and they just started their side hustle, and it turned into you know, an entrepreneurial venture. So seeing that from Japanese women was inspiring. So
I love that.
You know, don't necessarily believe all of what you hear, that there's no entrepreneurship in Japan or it's frowned upon. There are a lot of people under the radar that, you know, don't have a big brand. They're just working for themselves out there doing what they love.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry, you had a second part to that question.
Yes. You answered the first part. The second one is, how do you implement that way of thinking into Japan?
Whew. Great questions, Angel. Great questions. You know, I don't necessarily, I don't think we should go on a mission necessarily and browbeat people and say, you need to do this. I think, to me, it all comes down to demonstrating that you can do what you say you do, and demonstrate that you can do the work. And I think if you show a company, either, you know, maybe giving a free sample, for example, if you're a writer or an editor, you know, you take a page off their website, edit it for them, and say, this is what I can do for you. You know, show your work and show that you can deliver what they want, and build a relationship. You'll find that barrier to work with you will melt away. Now, that being said, there are certain companies that will only work with other corporations, you know, kabushiki gaisha, you know, KK, that kind of thing. So that's out there, and eventually I'm sure I'll need to deal with that. But if you're just trying to get started, you have to remember, you don't need to work with, you know, the biggest company in Japan. There are tons of small to medium-sized companies that really need help and really need good work, and they're waiting for you.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, I think one of the biggest differences between American business practices and Japanese business practices is that in America, we are very results driven.
Yes, yes,
Whereas in Japan, we're more relationship driven. You know,
absolutely.
as a Westerner, how do you build that trust with a Japanese client? Or what has been your experience, you know, regarding building that trust with a Japanese client?
You and I, we maybe, I don't want to say butt heads, but we've talked about this before, and it's come up in my other seminars. But
Mhm.
personally, I've just played the long game. You know, I've been
Mhm.
here a long time.
Mhm.
I've worked in companies, that helps. So
Mhm.
we'll probably talk about this later, but
Mhm.
you know, you don't have to come to Japan and rush and work for yourself right away. You know, work
Mhm.
for a company and build those networks. I mean, I see members from my network here watching me tonight. Thank you for coming, and it was a pleasure working with you and still working with you. But you know, so much, not just for me, but other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs that I know, so much came from them working in other companies for years and keeping in
Mhm.
touch with those people. And those relations, that's how you build the relationships, by working with people. Because in the company, you know, they learn what
Mhm.
you can do. You know, they learn what they like about you. Some people will learn what they don't like about you.
Right.
You know, they'll learn if you're someone they can work with. And then if you do good work and you decide to go out on your own and you've kept those
Mhm.
relationships, then
Mhm.
hopefully there will be enough people who still want to work with you, even if you're on your own.
Got it. Got it. So how can we, as you know, foreign nationals, ease the interaction with the Japanese client? Like, you know, would it be speaking better Japanese? Would it be being more polite? Like, what do you think would be a way to, you know, ease that communication with a Japanese client?
Got it. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of learning and speaking Japanese, even
Hmm.
though I'm not the greatest at it. My Japanese
Right.
is broken but capable. So yeah, you know, as soon as you get here, or before you come here, learn as much as you can, devote as much as you can to learning Japanese, and don't hesitate to communicate in Japanese. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I I can't tell you how many times just engaging with clients or coworkers in Japanese, that just broke down walls. You know, uh,
Mm.
even if I couldn't say everything I wanted to,
Right. Right.
just communicating with someone on that level, just barriers melted away. I owe a
Wow.
significant chunk of my income to the fact that I was willing to pitch a client in Japanese instead of English, and that was
Mm.
a requirement to engage with them. Was it perfect? No. Was it beautiful formal Japanese? Probably not.
Right.
But it was enough to start to earn their trust. So
Mm.
that's one. And then secondly, this is another area where you and I talk about a lot, but you
Right.
have to figure you have to choose your battles. So
Hmm.
you know, if you're from America, there's going to be a lot of cultural differences,
Right.
some
Right. Right.
bigger than
Right.
others.
Right.
And I would say, you know, try to adhere to as many, I guess, Japanese cultural norms as you can. And
Hmm.
you got to
Hmm.
think which ones are important. So, for example, this is a simple example, but
Hmm.
everybody teases me about how often I wear suits all the time. You know, but for me,
Right.
I when I came to Japan, that was a requirement for my
Hmm.
job, and
Right.
I noticed that it was important to a lot of Japanese professionals. And so
Hmm.
I said to myself, you know, this isn't the most comfortable, you know, clothing, especially during the summer, but I can let that go. You know, that's a small
Mhm.
price to pay to, you know, show respect to my clients. So
Mhm.
figure out as many of those little small wins that you can do, and that will also, I believe, kind of ease the mixing
Right.
between you and Japanese work culture.
Exactly. And regarding Japanese, do they expect you to speak perfect Japanese, or if you struggle a little bit, would that be okay?
That's okay. Now, try to be as polite as you can, and
Right,
you
right, right,
know,
right, right.
you don't want to run into a meeting speaking like manga Japanese or anime Japanese. You don't want to do that. Uh, you know, so definitely don't do that. But like in my example,
Mm-hmm,
I'm always trying to learn Keigo, the formal
mm-hmm,
Japanese. And
mm-hmm,
for me, what happens is I'll come into a meeting, and in the beginning, those introductory phrases, they're going to be in Keigo. They're going to be very formal. But then as I try to express more complicated thoughts, my Japanese becomes, let's just say, less formal. Not
right,
casual, not rude, but
right,
my
right,
grammar
right,
breaks up, and I might
right.
go from super polite just to polite. But
Mm-hmm,
that has been okay. That hasn't been a problem. You
right.
know, no one out there is expecting perfection unless your job function is tied to that perfection. If you're a translator or something, of course, be the best you can. But if you're just trying to build relationships,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be perfect.
Okay, okay. You just do your best.
Do your best, and just try to be polite. Try to be respectful to
Mm-hmm,
your culture and your clients. Yeah.
mm-hmm. I like that. I love that. That's perfect.
Thank you.
So let's say um, someone is thinking about becoming a solopreneur. What would you say to that person? Like, okay, here are the benefits of starting your own thing.
Okay. Well, let me start with what the benefits aren't.
Okay, okay.
So,
I like
the
that.
first the first mindset you want to ditch is, oh, I'm never going to have a boss again, and I can do whatever I want. No, your clients are going to become your bosses. So,
Mm.
you want to kill that mentality of you don't have a boss. Your bosses are just going to be in different companies. So that's
Mhm.
the first step. Um, Otherwise, yeah, beyond that, um, the benefits, of course, are flexibility. So at least in my line of work, I
Right.
I work at home. I can work in cafes. I work in co-working spaces. I work at client offices. So you have that mobility, which really
Mhm.
prepared me for this COVID-19 crisis, by the way. So,
Right.
you have flexibility, mobility. Of course, on the other hand, you lose a certain amount of income stability. But
Right.
and in many cases too, I guess my favorite aspect is all I've ever wanted to do is do good work and get feedback on that work. Deliver that
Mhm.
work directly to whoever can benefit from it. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, when you step out of a company, a large company, uh, you're working directly with your clients. So, for example,
Mhm.
in a company, both your
Mhm.
mistakes and failures are filtered, and you don't get direct feedback. If you work on a
Right.
team, something goes well, of course, you spread the credit. And everyone's playing a different role. And if you
Mhm.
fail, you don't, you spread the blame, and you're not sure exactly what went wrong. Where when you step out for yourself,
Mhm.
you get direct feedback. If something went
Okay.
great, it's on you, great. If something failed, then it's
Mhm.
also on you, and you've got to learn and fix that problem.
Right.
So I just like delivering my work directly to clients.
Mhm.
That's my favorite part.
All right. All right. All right. What do you think would be the correct mentality when becoming a solopreneur? Should I be very optimistic? Should I be more skeptical? What do you think should be the mentality of the person that decides to, start their own thing?
Wow, this is tough because I kind of started out wrong, and I learned from that in one particular way that I'll talk about. But
Okay.
cautious confidence,
Ooh,
cautious
what do you mean by
confidence.
that?
You need to be cautious. So like I said, you need to dig the well, you save money, be prepared, have a backup plan, have a plan B,
Mm-hmm.
C, D, all the way to Z, uh, so be that. But at the same time, you do need to be confident, and you do have to firmly decide that this is what you're going to do, and you're going to give it your all. And when I first started, that was my biggest mistake. Is, of course, I was doing the work. I had my website going, I had my social media going, but
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, I still wasn't 100% sure about what I was doing, and I was always tempted to kind of go to the job boards and go to that comfort zone,
Right.
and that slowed me down. That slowed me down, and it's not like that anymore. But
Right.
for people starting out, I want them to be cautious and confident. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. In my consulting sessions, I usually get people who, they want to be influencers or writers, or there's some type of creative endeavor that they want to do, but they don't know where to start, because they think, if I do this, I'm going to get judged. It's not going to be perfect. I don't have an 8K camera, or I'm not a writer. How do you start?
Well, first of all, you don't know until you find out. You don't know until you put something out there. So,
Right.
the first thing you do is just start, put it out there, and you might be a better writer than you thought. You might be a better photographer than you thought. You need to get your work out there. And to be more precise, let me just recommend a book I recently read that will basically tell people in that situation what to do. It's called Show Your Work. And anyone who has this thought of starting out, especially in the writing field or the artistic fields, should read that book. And the message it gives is basically show your work. If you want to put something out there, put it out there and show your process, show what you're doing, tell people what you're doing. And I'm not saying this because it's easy, because it's not. No one believes me, but I'm an introvert. And in my dream world, I'd be working in a cabin in the mountains, typing articles all day. But
Wow.
that if you want to do something, you've got to step away from that, and you've got to put yourself out there. That's one of the reasons for me. You'll see my face on my website and my social media. Not my favorite thing to do, but
Right.
you have to be a human, and you've got to put yourself out there. And sometimes bad things come from that. You'll get negative feedback, you'll get trolls, but in my community, most people have been extremely supportive, and
Right.
it's been a blast.
Okay. I think one last question regarding this topic would be,
Sure.
of course, if you are a person who makes something creative, if you write an article, you make a video, whatever, there's gonna be some type of criticism,
Yes.
right? What should be the mentality towards criticism?
Excellent question. And this is something that we all struggle with throughout our whole life. I think it's a
Right.
two-step
Right.
process. The first step is to acknowledge, is the criticism valid? Is it constructive? If someone just leaves a random comment and says this article is garbage, and they don't say anything, you
Right.
just need to get rid of that right off the bat, because that is not constructive.
Right.
That is not helpful. That's not legitimate. That's a troll. And troll, you just need to block them or silence. Now, if someone instead leaves some comments and they say, okay, interesting article, but your logic is off because of this, this, and that, then you need to relax and consider that, and thank them for helping you and thinking about it and considering it and saying, wow, maybe they have a point. Let me analyze that. Let me address that. So basically, yeah, again, two steps: decide if it's legitimate or not. And if it's legitimate, you do need to embrace it, because that legitimate criticism is what's going to make you better with every project that you do.
Dude, that's beautiful. That's perfect advice. Actually, one of the things that I struggle with personally is I make designs, I write, I do many things. And a lot of the times I take criticism very personal. It's almost like I view my creations as an extension of myself.
Right.
How can I prevent that? Like take the criticism, the constructive one, but not let it affect me in a personal level. Because I think we all struggle with that to a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do too, to be honest.
Right.
I think that's human nature. That's part of human nature. And
Right.
I guess my answer is going to be unconventional. I'm not sure if everybody's going to be into it, but
Okay.
um, I'm probably not nearly as creative as you, but
That's not
I,
true, man. That's not true.
I'm the suit most of the time, but but there is creativity in my writing. That's my creative side, and I am personally involved with that. So
Okay.
that is tough. But for me, I've been in the business world for so long that I can separate the two things. So when I do get that criticism, I think back to the purpose of my writing, which is often to sell something in the end, or to get a customer to click somewhere. And if I think back to the purpose, then I can separate myself from the creative side and say, okay, I love this article, but unfortunately, it's not serving the purpose. So if I think of it that way, I feel a little bit better. And the other thing I do, and I highly recommend, is I'm always writing things for myself. I mean,
Okay.
the vast majority of my work has been seen by so few people just because I write for fun. I'll go
Right.
travel somewhere and write about it. I'll write about a video game or a movie or something to my friends. And if you're always writing things for yourself, then deep down, you have plenty of your content, your passion projects. And, some of those you can share. So if you're having a tough time with how your clients are receiving your creative side, you've got your own website and you can publish whatever you want. You can publish your deepest thoughts or whatever you want to say. And you'll see a lot of that on my website. A lot of the blog posts I make, if they're not involved with the client, that's just what's on my mind right now, and I just put it there. And I'm not looking for money or or fame. It's just, this is what I want to say. It's not a client project. It's just what I'm feeling, and I write. And then I have other times where I'll just write for a really small audience just to get it out there. And what you'll find is later in your career, you might be able to repurpose some of that. So to give a real quick concrete example, I think everyone here knows that I work with a company called Tadaima Japan, and I write travel articles and tourism articles. And before I encountered them, I had been writing that kind of content for 10 years or almost 10 years, ever since I set foot in here. But I wasn't publishing it. I was just doing the work and just putting it out there. And sometimes I can go back to that content and, even though at the time I just wrote it for fun, I can say, wow, this is actually something I can use publicly now. And so eventually in time, your creative work might see the light of day. So in summary, if you're always writing for fun and you're not all of your work is for clients, I think you can get enough enjoyment out of your creative side and not worry so much about the business side, if that helps.
All right. Yeah, that is perfect. And actually, I think, to talk about another point, entrepreneurship is a highly romanticized field of work.
Yeah.
People look at entrepreneurs as heroes, changing the world, which, yeah, definitely there's something to it. But at the same time, there's many myths regarding entrepreneurship. People think, I have to be super smart to be an entrepreneur. I have to be Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or, need to have that world-changing idea. What are some popular myths about solopreneurship and entrepreneurship?
Well, I mean, when it comes to entrepreneurship, is exactly what you said. There are too many people who just think, okay, I've got to be the Mark Zuckerberg superstar, drop out of college, and have this, $1 million, or sorry, $1 trillion tech idea. Sure, that's out there, but you need to play the numbers, and you need to realize that that is rare. And uh,
Mm,
yes, they have changed the world, but that is rare. If you're just someone who wants to try working for yourself, or put your idea out there, the barriers to doing that are lower than ever, especially with uh,
mm,
technology, and at least before the recent times, access to other countries and things like that. The barriers are so low, anyone can go out and do something. I mean, I think about that
mhm.
every day when I'm preparing invoices and doing all these back office things. I think about how that would have been in the 80s, and it's it's
Wow.
it's ridiculous.
Right.
You can get G Suite and Zoho Invoice, and just have your business suite right there, and it
Mhm.
runs so smoothly. I mean,
Right.
imagine doing that decades ago. It would take up all your time, and you wouldn't have time to start a business. So,
Ah,
um, yeah, the biggest myth is to work for yourself. Don't romanticize too much. Learn from
right.
those celebrities, but if you want to
Mhm,
do
mhm.
something, figure out the fastest way you can just start doing it and getting feedback on what you're doing.
All right, all right, all right. Beautiful. So let's say, I started my own business, I started making money, blah, 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 blah. And then COVID-19 happened.
Yes.
You know, institutions have been discredited, uh, businesses have failed, uh, just many things have changed. And, we are coming out of a lockdown here in Japan and
Right.
Tokyo, but uh, this thing is not over yet. And, the repercussions, we're living the repercussions of coronavirus. Uh, what would be your advice to a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, for thriving in a post COVID-19 Japan?
Well, thriving is a tough word because the world is so unpredictable right now. Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so let me focus on surviving, and hopefully surviving will lead to thriving.
Okay.
Um, but the most important thing, and this is the strength of being small, and being solo or being a small team, is be ready to pivot. You know, if the trade winds of business go one way, get ready to follow it. Be ready to notice trends and change. So that would be my advice, and also just read about what's going on, and read about trends, read about technology, and be prepared to bring that into your business. So let me give
Mm-hmm.
you one example of something I'm working on. It's still a long ways off, but when this COVID-19 crisis first happened,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I might have some extra time. It didn't work out that
Right.
way, thankfully.
Right. Right.
However, I thought to myself, okay, if you know I take a big hit, what am I going to do with my extra time to ensure my survival? And one thing I'm working on is bringing some of my coaching and consulting um, online as a product.
Mm-hmm.
Productizing it. And again, going back to technology, there's so many tools out there that allow us to do that. So, I love working with people in person. I love doing seminars. I love working with people one-on-one coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm maybe a little anxious about being on camera, being online,
Right.
but you know, these days that's what we have to do. So yeah, thinking, what can I do to adapt my business to this situation is key, and being able to take action on that is important.
Mm-hmm. All right. So basically, to adapt to the situation.
Yeah, adapt, and again, adapting means taking action. So it's more than just
Mm-hmm.
thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I might do this someday.
Right.
You have to think, okay, there's a whole lot of problems out there. I need to
Right.
start working on this right now.
Mhm.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. All right. Yeah. So basically, adapting, taking action, and even though it's not perfect, you still gotta try. Right.
Yeah, and to give you another example, take advantage of being small. Like, it's it's fascinating here in Japan. A lot of my network works for these huge corporations who all of a sudden have to get people to work remote. And it's just fascinating seeing, you know, employees using Slack or Microsoft Teams for the first time, or Zoom for the first time, or figuring out how to work at home for the first time. And that change is so heavy for them and so harsh. And you know, to be smaller, that change is much easier to do and much easier to pull off. And that's the advantage you have to take care of. Now, we have disadvantages too. Those big companies have a lot of money to throw at these problems. So it's, again, it's not all positive, but you've got to take advantage of the advantages that you have. Yeah.
All right. Anthony, my last question for you actually is, it's a little bit more abstract, but
okay, I'll do my best.
You got it. What is the change that you want to see in the world?
Whew. Well, I mean, besides the obvious, and I won't get into that too much.
Right.
Wow, the change I want to see in,
or in Japan.
No, I can talk about the world.
Okay.
You know, and again, let's assume I want the same thing that everybody else wants right now. You know, world peace, a world without COVID-19, and all of that jazz. But I'm real passionate about, you know, people maximizing their potential, and I just think there's a huge disconnect with, you know, workplace satisfaction, workplace engagement. You know, people are always worried about jobs and how to make money, how to survive. And, you know, I want to see that problem solved. You know, I want people to be free to pursue, you know, what they want to do, get fairly compensated for that, and just not have to worry so much, you know, about their career all the time, and you know, being in a job that doesn't match for them. And that is abstract, like you said, and I still have a lot of, you know, ideas and things I need to solidify around that, but that's what I'm passionate about.
All right, that is beautiful. Guys, before we finish our conversation, here in Nightcrawlers, it's really important for us to humanize entrepreneurs. Like I was talking with Anthony before, a lot of the times we see entrepreneurs as these mythical beings from other planets who are like changing the world. But entrepreneurs are human beings, just like you and me. And I think one of the things that really humanize us is music, because everyone loves music and we have different tastes, but you know, that love for music is something that's very human. And that's why we have a Spotify playlist called Soundcrawlers. And every time we have one of these conversations, I add the host, you know, the song that really inspired them. We did with Asama before, and we also did it with Anthony as well. Anthony, if you could please tell us a little bit about the song that you chose.
Sure. I'm just going to mention the artist, and this was actually the hardest question you have asked me, because you know, music's not my hobby. I'm not really into music so much. I listen to it, but it's often in the background, or you know, I have it on when I'm running or whatever. But yeah, there's an artist that some of you might know called Nujabes. He's Japanese. His I guess real name is Jun Seba, and sadly he passed away at a young age, I think in his 30s. But he just makes this music that's just this beautiful fusion between East and West, and it kind of always reminds me of what I'm doing. And I guess more practically, it's just the kind of music you can put on, you know, when you're working, when you're just thinking and relaxing, when you're studying kanji characters. It's just beautiful music to listen to. So you can almost pick almost any song he has produced, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Right. What's interesting is you chose the song Another Reflection.
Yes.
Why this one?
I don't mean to disappoint, but I don't know. I was mulling over your question and going through his catalog, and that's just the one I enjoyed the most at this time in my life. That could change a few years down the line. But yeah, that's just the mood I was in. But again, you know, just
Perfect.
look him up and explore his catalog, and you're gonna find just tons of great music.
That is perfect, perfect. Before we go to the Q&A session, I wanted to thank Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for joining our event.
Thank
Um,
you.
I have learned so much from you ever since I met you, and you
Thank
know,
you.
to be able to share this with other people is it's something very valuable. So I hope you guys really, take advantage of what Anthony said. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so
And
much
I
for
learned
everything.
from you, by the way. I don't want you to end without me acknowledging that. So, you know, again, you're always teaching me that I need to be a little bit better at storytelling and kind of being a little bit more authentic. So thank you as well.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Anyways, guys, we are gonna move to our Q&A session. We can do it for like 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please type it in the chat, and then we'll start from there. So please type your questions for Anthony.
Let me have a sip of water, prepare myself.
Yeah, please.
Wow. Okay.
All right,
Oh, okay.
Anthony.
They're coming in.
Okay. So Anthony, let me read it for you.
Sure.
So this one is from Jason Ball.
Thanks for coming, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. What are the big myths out there
All
about
right,
starting out on your own?
Big myths about starting on your own. Thank you. Excellent question. The big myth is that you have to drop everything you're doing and, you know, let go of everything you're doing and put it all on the line to start on your own. Um, you know, again, as I mentioned in my story, I mean, I've been experimenting with freelancing and side hustling for over a decade, and all of those experiences kind of built up and pointed me in the direction I needed to go to um, more comfortably start on my own. So yeah, the big myth is again kind of what you see with these superstar entrepreneurs and things like that, where they drop out of college and get all this huge debt. That is one way, and that is a legitimate way, of course, but it's not the only way. And you know, I always learned from every company I worked with and the people I worked with, and they are the ones that built me up and guided me. So yeah, the myth is you just don't have to drop everything. It's a process. It's a launch process, and that could be anything, anywhere from a couple months to, in my case, decades. You know, or a little over a decade. Does that answer the question?
sure. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jason. Next one is from Diallo. Diallo, do you want to ask Anthony directly?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Diallo.
Yeah, it's a great to talk to you. And I'm a business student here in Tokyo at Globis. You might have
Oh,
heard.
Globus, awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we've got
So
a couple of
yeah,
alumni
as
here.
you know, yeah, MBA costs a lot. That's MBA, and
Yeah.
they teach us, in most cases they teach us how to, to manage a business, like in terms of marketing, HR, finance, and stuff like that. But I feel like I need more information about how to start my own thing. So from your experience, how helpful actually your MBA is for your, for what you're
Wonderful,
currently doing. Yeah.
wonderful question. It was incredibly helpful, but not immediately and not directly. You know, I had an entrepreneurial class. It was actually one of my focuses during my MBA time, and I got a great mentor out of that. And I guess the first way it helped me is, you know, my teacher, Dr. Christine Pence. I mean, she pushed me out of my comfort zone like crazy every day. And that's the best kind of preparation for starting your own business. But even when I finished grad school, as you heard, I wasn't ready to start a business, but thankfully I was able to take what I learned and take that graduate school experience into the companies that I worked for. And I could see how what I learned could make a difference. And I could see, what was working, what wasn't, what were the pain points that clients and the company was having. So in my case, it pushed me out of my comfort zone. It built my confidence, and it helped me add value to the companies that I work for. And that in turn, over time, gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing now.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure, and good luck with your studies.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Anytime.
Diallo, thank you so much. That was an amazing question. Let's go to Tom. Tom, do you want to ask Anthony directly?
Oh, Tom, thanks for coming.
Hey, Anthony, thanks for sharing your experience as well. So just quickly,
Yeah, my pleasure.
so recently I'm starting a startup incubator / studio support network, and it's a
Wow,
big adventure.
we gotta talk more frequently.
We do have to talk more frequently, but yeah. Anyway, just to keep it simple for now.
Sorry.
What resources do you know about or support networks that are available for support for solopreneurs? In addition to this group here, but is anybody doing, these kind of collaborative groups so we can support each other, to help us get started and grow our businesses?
Okay, let me see if I can get through all this. I mean, first I saw Jason here. So if you haven't met Jason Ball, he's in here. Connect with him. He is running, one of the most powerful networks for any kind of business person here in Japan. I've met so many great people through his events. To be more practical, in these COVID-19 times, please remember that the Japanese government stimulus does apply to solopreneurs. So, for anyone here, if your business is struggling, first apply for that. Even if your business isn't struggling, go through the process and have everything lined up, because if your business hits a road bump anytime this year, you can hit the button and apply. So that's the immediate thing. As far as other communities, it's a little difficult. I'll just mention my favorite, I guess, networking groups besides Jason's business in Japan. Tokyo Digital Marketers is an amazing community. And then, of course, I don't know if Asama's here, but the Blink Connect, the Blink community space community is amazing as well. Beyond that, I guess I'll make a quick plug on one of the projects I worked for. There's this book called The Startup Guide that I worked on, and it's kind of old school. It's paperback, but they have done an excellent job of just compiling all of the startup and entrepreneurial resources here in Tokyo as well. And then there's also, the name escapes me at the moment, but there's something, again, before this crisis, there's something at Toranomon Hills every Thursday night. I apologize, the name escapes me, but if you shoot me a message later, I'll get it for you. But every Thursday they have this huge entrepreneurial event, and it's incredibly popular.
It's called
yes.
Venture Cafe.
Thank you. That's it. Venture Cafe. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I would go there right away once we can go there in person. I think they're doing online events at the moment.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Jason, I'll send you a link request. I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, definitely connect with him. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I have to go teach, guys. Thank you very much.
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. Let's go to Manjul. I hope I'm pronouncing this correct. Manjul, do you want to ask Anthony directly?
Sure, Anjo. Thanks. You got the name correct. Hey, Anthony.
Hello, Manjul. Great to see you.
It was an interesting discussion. It's amazing, like the amount of time we spend and discuss with each other. We never talked about this particular topic. So I was just wondering, what do you miss about, do you miss anything about the corporate life? And like you had mentioned, you always need to have a plan A, B, all the way through Z. I mean,
Yes.
have you ever thought about going back to the corporate world?
Excellent question. And before I answer, full disclosure for everyone, you know, Manjul is one of my clients. We work together on a regular basis. And, you know, I'd like to send out a special thanks because, you know, he and his company, HLS Global, they were there from the beginning. We connected while I was working at the ACCJ, and we've been working together for a long time. So thank you, Manjul. And to answer your question, what do I miss about the corporate life? To be honest, even though I do have, you know, a wonderful network and a lot of friends, I miss the office friendships. You know, I work hard, but I like to make friends at work, and you know, we work hard and play hard. So we're working together. We're in the trenches, but then we'll be sure to go to lunch together or make combini runs together. So I miss that, and you know, depending on the company, you know, having access to systems and technology is nice, and being able to kind of work on bigger scale projects. So, okay, to give you a specific example, I used to work for the ACCJ, and I loved working with the Japanese government. You know, managing photography to take pictures of the Prime Minister, you know, going to the Prime Minister's PR office to talk about how he wants to market to the foreign community, you know, taking pictures and interviewing government officials. So those are things that you, at least in the beginning, you have to give up when you go solo because you're small again. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Sure, but you know, like you said, you do get a chance to work at client sites quite a bit. I mean, doesn't that kind of give you access into some of that?
It does. It absolutely does. However, as you and I know, we're often, you know, when we work together, we're often pressured for time. So we don't often kind of get to relax or be too casual. So yeah, working with clients and going to clients' office does make me feel like I'm working in a corporation, but big companies do have reach, and you know, especially big organizations like the ACCJ. You know, you're one day you're working at your desk, and the other day you are over by the Diet Building in Kasumi Gaseki. So that's something I haven't been able to quite recapture yet.
Cool. Well, we'll talk about this when we speak next then. Thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Manjul.
Thanks.
You got it.
All right. All right, Manjul, thank you so much. Amazing question and very good follow-up question. I love it. And the next one is from Michael. Michael, do you want to talk to Anthony directly?
Hey, good evening. Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk.
Great. Thanks for coming, Michael, and thanks for connecting on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for the event. This was pretty cool.
That's all, Angel.
My question was, earlier you mentioned being adaptable. You said something about the winds changing and being ready to pivot.
Yes.
So I wanted to know what you think you could do to develop that type of perception and skill, because again, that's not something that's easy to do, and how to avoid falling victim to temporary trends and things that get a lot of hype and in a short amount of time turn out to be, you know, not very valuable.
Wow. Excellent question. Okay, let me break that down again. So the first part is, how do you develop the ability to try new things and to be agile? I agree with you 100%. It is hard. It's something I've been working on all my life, and I'm still working on it. And like anything, it comes with practice and, you know, just admitting to yourself that if you want to do something big or if you want to succeed, you're going to have to take action. And I hate to be cliche, but step out of your comfort zone. Now, you don't have to do anything wild and crazy, but you can take baby steps. And to give you an example, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert. I prefer to communicate in writing. However, my business has led me to do more video content, even things like this, where we're having an event on video. It's not in my comfort zone at all. I like to stay behind the camera, but I learned over my life that if you want something, you often just have to bite the bullet and try something. And I guess if you keep doing that, you're going to eventually learn that most of the time when you try these things, they go better than you expected. And that will make it easier to try that again or try something new next time. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and please remind me of the second question. My apologies.
Yeah, the second half was, how do you avoid falling victim to the trends that get a lot of hype that everybody seems to follow for a little while, but turn out to be kind of baseless in the future?
That's good.
That's an even harder one.
Good question.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't thought about that very much because in my nature, I'm not someone who follows trends. So it's pretty easy for me to avoid trends. That's just how I grew up and how I was. So to be perfectly honest, I haven't thought of strategies for doing that. If I could add some kind of answer, I would say that one thing I learned in the last few years is to, instead of constantly worrying about your weaknesses or what you don't have, focus on building your strengths as high as you can go. So if we take that to a practical level, if you look at what you're writing and you look at your social networks or whatever, make sure you're always putting your energy into the ones that you're good at, or the things that you're good at, and keep developing that. And that might give you some natural protection from chasing or following trends. Sound good?
Just gracias. Thank you.
Sure. Anytime. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much. Let's go to our second to last question.
Okay.
From Tsuyoshi. Tsuyoshi, welcome.
Tsuyoshi, welcome.
Hey,
you want to ask
it's
Anthony directly?
Yeah, great to see you, Tsuyoshi. Thank you so much.
Actually, it's very kind of a repeated question. As a route during this session, did you do something new or try to something different from before?
During the coronavirus situation?
For example, in the past 3 months, did you do something
Yes.
different from before, or try to do something different, new?
That's an excellent question. I can answer that on 2 layers. So as far as something totally different, this motivated me to start thinking more about productization. So I, again, gradually, very slowly, I started working on making my online training program. And don't quote me on that. This is probably still several months out, but this pushed me to start making that. Secondly, during this time, if you're working with your clients, it's important to really be there for them and, give them ideas and help them navigate this crisis. So, for example, to give everyone a preview of what's happening, right now, as everyone knows, Tadaima Japan, the client that I work with in tourism, there is no tourism right now. So they are pivoting. We're rebuilding the brand. We're going to come out with a new website, new style of content, probably a new name. And I'm doing everything I can to support them through this huge change. And they're doing a wonderful job pivoting. So working on new products and just trying to be there for my clients as much as possible. Those are the 2 things that have changed during this time.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tsuyoshi, thank you so much.
Hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely. Tsuyoshi, that was a very nice question. Thank you so much. And guys, before we, talk about our last question, I'm going to talk a little bit about Nightcrawlers. So while I talk about it, you guys, if you have one last question, please think about it and type it. The first question that appears will be our last question. So while I talk about Nightcrawlers, please think about that question if you have a question. If no, so basically, like I said before, Nightcrawlers is a group where we want to basically connect entrepreneurs, marketers, artists, just people who want to start their own things, to put their creative endeavors out there. Nightcrawlers is the group for that. Here I put a link to our Nightcrawlers group on LinkedIn. If you guys can join that group, that would be beautiful. I give marketing tips daily, content, all that stuff daily. And you guys can be part of a great and awesome creative community. The last one would be for our Spotify playlist. We love music. We love that personalized style that we have going on. So if you guys want to check our Spotify playlist, it's right here. So, is there any questions left? Any questions?
Oh,
right.
Well, maybe the most important question.
All right, Diallo, go ahead, man.
Oh,
Sorry. So, well, I would like to ask where if I would like just like to connect or to learn more about you or about the job you're doing.
sure.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Where to find
So
information or resources on YouTube or something like that. I don't know.
yeah. So there's a couple of websites, and then I'll talk about LinkedIn. So I have a landing page at anthony-griffin.com, and my company website is consultsaga.com. And if you go to those sites, you can see all of the social media platforms that I use. However, I will say I'm most active on LinkedIn. That's my favorite social media network. I think it's the most powerful. So if you connect with me there, just make sure to send a message and remind me that you were at this event, and I'd be happy to connect. And on LinkedIn, I'm not only just sharing my own work. My mission is to share anything that I find in my research and my reading that is helpful. So if you are following my feed, you're going to get articles about new technology, new marketing techniques, productivity techniques. So it's not just a showcase for what I do. My mission there is to just keep sending out helpful information from my network and from my clients.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Very important question. Thanks again.
All right. That was beautiful, Del. Thank you so much. And yeah, guys, that is pretty much it. Anthony, any last message? Anything? Any last comment? Something?
I just want to, all I can say is just thanks. Thanks everyone for coming. I mean, we started promoting this, like 2 days ago or something, and the turnout was amazing. And, I'm just grateful that people came here to engage and talk. And at least one thing I mentioned tonight will help you out there. So, I just have a message of gratitude and thanks.
All right. Sounds beautiful. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Michael. I think my last message would be, if you're planning on starting something, doing your own thing, just go ahead and do it. Even though of course, it's not going to be perfect, but please do it. Yeah, you got it. If you got a dream, you got a goal, just go ahead and do it. You got it. Yeah. And that's it for today. Thank you, guys. And I hope to see you next time. We have many events, usually weekly. So please, subscribe to our LinkedIn group, and we'll keep you posted. That's it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night, great weekend too.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Manjul. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Manjul.
Thanks, Jason. Tsuyoshi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. See you.
Have a good one, Jason. Thank you, Ed. Great to see you. Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was very great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for all your help over the years. You got
My
it.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Yep.
Anytime. Have a good night.
You too.
Will do. All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Tsuyoshi.
Thank you, Tsuyoshi.
Thank you. Where are you,
Good
Angel?
luck.
What Axel?
Hmm?
Your name Axel or Angel?
Well, you know, my real name is Angel.
Oh, really?
My
I didn't
nickname
know.
is Axel, but
Oh.
you know, gotta keep it real. That's why I changed it.
Eso suena como español. Ángel.
See, well, you know, I speak Spanish, man. So there you go.
Okay.
Gotta keep the Latin flair alive, if you know what I mean.
Okay. I fully enjoy. Thank you, Axel and Anthony.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tsuyoshi.
Bye.
See you online.
Yeah.